Hi, my name is Remigiusz Sokolowski. I will share with you our experiences with migrating the Oracle, the Zabbix database backend to Oracle RDBMS. Few words about me. Currently, I work for a daughter company of the Nordea Group. Have something like 10 years of experience with databases. Mostly Oracle RDBMS, but more or less some other databases too. The blog I work on is provided here because there are two articles which I will share with you, but there are some details about code used or something like that. Here is our system overview. As you may see, this is not as large as the systems presented today. I would say this is middle class with around 500 new values per second. Overall performance is quite low. We don't use a strong machine for the Zabbix database. The whole configuration is very simple. This is active-passive configuration, which is normal standby Oracle configuration. There is nothing fancy about that, I would say. The binaries used by us are coming from the distribution. We don't change anything in the code. The only changes are done in the GUI or on the database itself, and I will present what it is done on this database exactly. The whole presentation will be divided into kind of two blocks. First block is about issues you may hit if you will choose to use Oracle RDBMS as a backend. And the second part lists our improvements to the performance of the system or usability maybe. So the issues you may hit are bound with NLS character set, hard parsing by Oracle, memory management, and here particular for us or special for us is a migration to 2.3 version from 2.02, which we start with. And in the case of improvements, little about indexing, which is actually at the moment has more historical meaning because in the version 2.2 there is also the same configuration of indexing, so our changes are actually done by what is provided with Zabbix off the shelf. There is also some package for loading images, partitioning, which is more complex issue, and I will tell you more about that. And few notes about data compression services, which is kind of feature in Oracle RDBMS. First, start with NLS character set. By default, Oracle installation comes with different NLS character set than used by Zabbix. And this is why we have kind of problem, because we used this default AL16, UTF-16 NLS character set, and actually Zabbix have to have AL32 UTF-8. So, and the only possibility is to migrate from one database to another by dropping all the data to some kind of dumps and then loading again to the new database with the required character set. So this is a kind of obstacle you have to be prepared for, especially if, as I said, the default character set is different, and usually if you don't use national types, you don't care what is this character set, and usually you simply get the default one. Here is also a question why Zabbix uses national types instead of using simple types like varchar, simply by providing for the database UTF. More about hard parsing. In general, all the databases do such step that when they get SQL sentence, they do some syntax and semantic analysis and create some kind of plan or choose from many different plans. And this is quite complex step, especially for Oracle, which is itself very complex database. So this is very CPU intensive job. And when we use first time Zabbix off the shelf, we hit immediately a problem with CPU, which was simply burned because Zabbix uses literals in its, or at the time, it used literals in the text of SQLs, and Oracle doesn't like it. Oracle in general likes that when the SQL sentences are the same, because based on SQL sentence there is created hash which is used for identification of the same kind of SQLs, and when you provide literal, it changes the hash simply. Normal way for working with Oracle is just to use bind variables, which doesn't change the sentence because you have kind of, I don't know, name, for example, var1, let's say, and so basically hash stays the same, and what you need to do is to change only the value of the variable when you execute the query. And this is the normal way of thinking. Fortunately, Oracle has also such setting like cursor sharing, and normal setting is set to exact. When you have many applications on the database, this is quite important because different applications react in a different way to setting this to this setting. We have such maybe easy setup that we have a completely standalone database only for Zabbix applications. So we can set all the settings we can treat as settings for this application, and it doesn't matter that we set it globally on the instance level. So here is setting to the force, and actually this is a must if you work with Oracle because of the CPU burning. Even with the newest 2.3 version, for example, which we migrated a few months ago, you still have to use this setting. I cannot tell if this is still viable if we would talk about newer versions like 2.4 or 3.0. Mainly this means that Oracle, when it takes SQL sentence, changes all the literals into bind variables. So when it comes to creating a hash, this is the same hash for every SQL of the same kind. In this way, we provide that the instance works quite smoothly. But in 2.2.3 version, bind variables are used by a core server, but they are still not used by GUI, and actually still you have to set it to get the performance in the satisfactory level. Here's something about memory management in Oracle. This is very important because we somewhat discovered that the database doesn't work very stable if one doesn't take care of the special configuration of the memory. In general, for 11G version of Oracle, there is mix of different pools. Mainly, there is one big pool for buffers, like for example, in this is buffer pool. Actually, this is the same of the same meaning pool, but there is also a pool which is called shard pool, and this shard pool is used by Oracle to provide the service of checking the SQLs, to keeping them in the cache, so to keep the performance at the satisfactory level. And in case of working with Zabbix, and due to the many different SQLs, there is a somewhat hidden flow of the memory from buffer cache, which means the data keeping in memory, to this shared pool. And with time, it gets bigger and bigger. We discovered that we have to restart the database at least a few months, in the interval of few months. It depends, of course, on how much memory we set up for cache. But in general, this is when it comes to few months, it is actually possible to restart from time to time. We experience much worse activity, or simply kind of crashes, or inability to perform well when we haven't set this last hidden parameter. Maybe first I would say about this one. It actually disables this leakage from between buffer cache and shared pool, but actually you cannot set it to true, because when you do this, you will be hit with such errors. Those errors actually, this error means that you have no bigger enough contiguous memory in shared pool, and when you hit it once, there are hundreds of repeatable errors, and actually the system doesn't work well, and you have to restart the database at least. The only possible way is to set this parameter. Those parameters are not default ones. The underscore before means that those are hidden parameters. So in normal configuration they are not used. And I would say that this one is special for Zabbix configuration. Here is again migration to 2 to 3. We hit this thing with bin variables which are implemented in server, but not in GUI, as I said earlier. But where there was something much worse, this is error Zabbix 7373. I don't know, but maybe you will hit this too, because I suppose that it will work in the same way on MySQL or Postgres as well as on Oracle. Mainly this means that in API, if you use it for your own purpose, or this is anyway used by GUI for checking by default some late values, the query gets too much data, and this leads actually to too much I/O and some kind of CPU burning. Anyway, but I think that mainly this is about I/O intensive work. So when we were hit with it, just immediately after migration, we simply can't work. And fortunately for us, we used services. I will tell you in a minute what it is. And we were able to locate the problem and solve by ourselves. And this is a little bit different than the patch which is provided by Zabbix. I don't encourage you to use our way, because this is not so universal, I would say, but works for us well. And so you may see it on this blog. And now I will tell you something about improvements. This is the first and most important, is using partitioning in the Zabbix, especially because of history tables, which are, as you all know, grow very rapidly. And we found this article by Ricardo Santos, very good anyway, which describes the way how to partition the tables for MySQL. And basically we do the same, but of course on Oracle, so there are some differences in the implementation. Main thing is history rotation. And so we actually choose a new feature of Oracle 11g. It is interval-based partitioning. That means that there's kind of interval which is defined in the definition of the table, and it have to be a fixed value. For dates, for example, it could be month for, I don't know, 1 day or week. But here we have only numeric types, so we cannot use such unit like month. But still we can use such units like week or day. We choose or maybe 2 weeks. We choose to use week because this is a fixed number of seconds. And this is great because interval-based partitioning completely allows us for not caring about new partitions. They are created as soon as the new value hits the table, and there is no partition for this value. So immediately is created a new one automatically without our code, actually. So the only thing we had to do was some kind of automating the dropping old partitions. And we did it with simple job. We simply drop every week, we drop second partition. And I don't know, we have around 1 month and a half of the history. And this is about 50 gigabytes worth. And there are also other partitions, I mean, those related to trends, art, alerts, maybe something more, but they are not so important because they are still after actually two years. still very small comparing to history, and I suppose that we can easily maintain them manually, so we even have no automatic drop of the partitions there. Another thing which you can use is data compression. This would be very cool if you would use it, because for certain kinds of values, this data compression can be even 1 to 10. So it changes very much the volume of the data. And this is very important because you still have the same amount of memory and you have those compressed blocks. So that means that you can have actually much more data within the same amount of memory. And the only overhead is when you write it down, and because of the nature of the monitoring system, there is actually no updates on the data. This is, we have only kind of pros for when we use this compression. And another thing is this feature of services. This is actually arbitrary names which you can define on the database. And when you connect to the database, you can connect providing in the connection description this service name, and you actually are connected to the service. So that means that if the database have no such definition, you don't get the connection. But at the same time, with such identifier, you get some kind of statistics which are bound to this name. And in Zabbix, we divided the whole thing into two things. I mean GUI and server. And this is why we were so easily to find this Zabbix 7373 error, because we simply saw on our database monitoring tool that all the queries which are a problem are coming from GUI. So while we don't touch the core server because of the problems with testing, and easily we probably could easily broke the code. This is not so with GUI. So we even improved this problem by ourselves.
Remigiusz, we are running out of time.
Okay. So I will end in a minute. Small changes in DDL, which touches two indexes actually. One was anyway dropped with this fixed. Those changes in the indexing are fixed with 2.2 version. So I don't. This is not so important actually. One is obvious because some queries are shown in the database monitoring at once, and another is simply unnecessary. But even if it exists, it doesn't matter. And about images, we had simply package which we used for it the function which was or script which was provided with Zabbix off the shelf. And here some thoughts about why we actually don't use MySQL at the company. So maybe this is kind of unification. In general, I don't tell nothing about cost. As you know, Oracle is quite expensive, and assuming that we would use partitioning and data compression, it is even more money. So this is viable mainly for large companies which have some kind of program with Oracle, like, I don't know, unlimited deployment or kind of partnership. Any questions?
As I see, you use Oracle 10.g or 10G?
11G.
11?
11G, yes.
11.
Yes, because interval partitioning and mainly this one is used in 11G, and this is actually currently this is I would say that the basic version used by companies in the world. Of course, there is new version 12C, but in our recognition, this is too early to switch to it.